Amazing staff. I want to welcome you to one of many of my RTI News You Can Use segments where I will do my best to keep you all up to date on all things RTI. And it is my hope that these sessions will answer some of those lingering questions you may have or provide you with some insight on our processes here at Degan and what to do should you encounter a student who needs some additional support. So today we're going to talk about the 4 Ds of RTI. Those 4 Ds are data, documentation, details, and direction. Senate Bill 1153 is where the new laws for RTI are housed. They continue to be updated, but the biggest changes thus far is that the referrals for dyslexia now fall under special education. So that's a big change for us, but I know that we're going to be prepared to handle that. This will require any student with a suspicion of dyslexia to receive a full individual evaluation through the special ed department. Utilizing the 4 components of the 4 Ds, we can make our time with our students in RTI more manageable and hopefully less stressful for all involved. It is important to note that this process will roll out in stages as for our district responsibilities. For this year, LISD's focus will be in the area of data. So we'll talk a little bit about some data. As for the data that we'll be utilizing during the RTI process, when bringing a student to the RTI team, please have the most current data that you have. It is also imperative to have multiple data sources. The sources that I have listed here are just a few of those that would be acceptable. But do note that all students that are coming to the RTI process must have a current DRA level. That is one of those specifying items that gives you an opportunity to really have a handle on the student's reading ability and to have an opportunity to hear those students read to really see where those gaps are. But some of the other examples are your CBAs, our Eagle Time Test, iStation, their current grades, any of those universal math screeners, the DIBELS, the phonological awareness or the phonological interventions, and any other quantitative means of data that you'd like to share to support your concerns. As for documentation, documentation is critical, guys. If we do not have the appropriate documentation, we cannot conduct a successful meeting and will therefore have to reschedule your meeting for another time. And with such a short amount of time to meet and discuss, we really want to make sure that we have all the information needed to substantiate your claims at the time scheduled. We also don't want to get in front of the parents and not have our ducks in a row so that we can present our best information to the parents to help them understand some of the struggles. If you want to check with me ahead of time to ensure that the data that you have is appropriate, I am always happy to support you. You can also reach out to your RTI team member or even your previous RTI team member from your team for some support. With regard to details, focus on the facts. Guys, I cannot stress that enough. I know that it is hard not to share our opinions or our experiences when speaking with parents or when coming to the RTI process, but we don't want to put ourselves in a position to be held liable for any misinformation or leading or misleading a parent in any way. Remember that our students are the very best that their parents have, and we want to handle these sensitive situations with the utmost care. We must be careful not to diagnose or mention details or suspicions of any type of disabilities or diagnosis within the fog. Those are personal conversations that can be had, but please do not indicate any need for or suspicion of any type of disabilities within the fog. Stick to the facts of the student concerns. If you stick to the facts, you will be right every time. The student is reading on a DRA level 4. The student is critical intervention in iStation. The student has not passed any portion of the STAR test for the past 3 years, nor have they passed any Eagle assessment for this current school year. Those are facts. And also, make sure that you're communicating with parents along the way. The worst thing that we can do for a parent is kind of blindside them with the fact that They're coming into a room with people who are here to support them and help them, and they don't even know that there is an issue. So please be careful to make sure that you are communicating along the way. The fourth D is direction. When we talk about direction, this means that upon leaving that RTI meeting, each staff member, the parent, as well as the RTI team should have a clear direction for the next steps for that student. Those steps will either be to follow the intervention plan and the goals that have been set for the student, or we are going to be returning that student to Tier 1 instruction, meaning that they were successful on the goals that were set, and then they will return to Tier 1 instruction, or we will be moving them on to the next tier, which would be Tier 3, or we will be referring them for testing. So upon leaving, we need to know the direction of that student's progress. Also, if we are setting goals for the student, keep in mind those goals must be SMART goals. They must be specific and measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. An example of a good goal for a student would be as such: Johnny will be able to decode 75 out of 100 first grade sight words with 100% accuracy by the end of the 6-week period. We want to make sure that we develop those clear-cut goals, and that's what the RTI team is there to help you do. Breaking news, people. I can be very honest with you guys and tell you this has been my biggest piece of learning over this summer as I've spent time trying to learn more about the RTI process. RTI is not meant to be a life sentence. There's been some direction given to us in the past where we may have believed that a student would basically be a Tier 2 student. They need some extra interventions and they just kind of always need that. Well, now, the way the law is stating is that we must make sure that the student is going through that cycle or that process. If a student makes changes, either they're going to go down back into Tier 1 instruction, or they can even be exited out of the RTI process altogether, or they be going up to Tier 3 or referring for testing. This is really a really great area with the state because one of the things that they want to make sure that we do is that we understand that RTI is also not an intentional slowdown to the special ed referral. And we really haven't done that on our campus. I'm very proud about that. We've made very good referrals, but there are some people in the state who have caused us all to be in a position where we have to justify all of our actions. And we just want to make sure that we are not intentionally slowing down a SPED referral. If we know that a student needs to be tested or we have suspicion of a disability, at this point our responsibility is to refer that student if interventions are not working. Also, we have to be careful not to over-identify because the state is still looking at those numbers as well. So lots of gray area and we'll work through it together. As for the tiers, this information can be found in your handbook, but I also just want to breeze over it just so you know what I mean when we talk about Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3. Tier 1 is your grade level instruction. This could include things like tutoring on grade level material, LLIs, small group instruction, any of those kind of reminders to stay on task, anything like that, where the student is just kind of having some struggles with grade level material, but is still able to progress with some additional help. With regard to Tier 2, Tier 2 is where students have demonstrated some gaps and some struggles with grade level instruction and require some interventions that will be given at the level that they are performing at in order to try to fill those gaps. These students will need a meeting to discuss those goals and concerns so that we can develop an appropriate plan and a course of action. We talked about that D, direction. We want to make sure we know what direction the student is going in. And Tier 3. This tier is for our students with substantial behavioral or academic challenges and require lots of one-to-one instruction given in any area on a daily basis. So that is the most intense of our tiers and where we spend a great deal of time trying to build capacity with students. Remember that there should not be a fog put into the system for any student who is currently special ed or 504. And that does include speech only students. They are still considered special education students. And so we want to make sure that we do not um, misidentify those students. If you are having challenges with a student who's already identified as SPED or 504, the first thing you should do is contact their case manager. With regard to SPED, their case managers would either be Beth, Fatima, or Debbie. With regard to 504, myself or Mrs. Moore can assist you with any questions you have about a 504 student. Mrs. Schaefer can still assist you with any students that are currently MTA. And also, even if you have any challenges with your GT students, but those students can have a FOG. But you can document challenges for those SPED and 504 students on a Word document. And then I'll show you where you can upload that into Skyward so that we can make sure we have that data if necessary. Here's some upcoming dates for you. I want you guys to keep in mind that these are our full day standing meeting dates. Though they are listed here: October 25th, January 17th, March 28th, May 16th. But also keep in mind that if there's a severe circumstance and our students' progress cannot wait until those dates, you can get with me and we can schedule a meeting sooner than that. We also have some follow-up meeting dates, which will be held after school in order to follow up on student progress. These meetings will be done on a sign-up basis to ensure the fairness with the times. We will try to make sure that we keep those follow-up meetings pretty brief. We'll be coming in, we'll be getting all that data that we need to see how the students progressed and deciding whether or not they are going to go back down to Tier 1 instruction, if they need testing, or they need to go to Tier 3. Sign-ups for RTI meetings. Most of you guys know this, but we do have some members to our team that are new, and I want to make sure that we get that covered. Sign-ups for RTI meetings will be done through Blooms. I typically send those out about 2 weeks prior to the scheduled meeting dates. Official letters informing parents of the meeting and the meeting times will then be sent home. But also, please communicate with your parents any of the concerns that you have prior to the meeting and the letters going home so that they aren't taken off guard. We don't want them to believe that we are doing something that we are not with their student or trying to ambush them in any way. So we just want to be very open and honest with our communication. And finally, I know that was a pretty quick overview, but I am willing to answer any questions that you may have. I have a link here to a Google form that I'm also going to send you an email for you to list any questions that you have. We will have some time designated on our professional learning day to kind of do a question and answer about any other questions you may have about RTI or any specific situations that you would like to have addressed. So be on the lookout for this link to be sent to you in an email shortly, and I will be happy to tailor our time together based on your questions. And on deck, I am going to be talking with you guys next about fogs. So my next little RTI news you can use will be on fogs, what they look like, how to find the information you need, how to input the data into the fogs, how to access them, and make sure everything is good to go prior to your RTI meetings. I thank you for enduring me today and my voice, as I do not have one, and I'd hoped to get one back sooner, but it never came back. But I still wanted to get this information out to you guys. So thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing the responses that you guys have on that Google form, and have a great, great day. Thank you.